Welcome in. It is the Monday, September 22 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. Week 3 of the NFL season officially wraps up tonight. We have a banger with the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens to finish up the week. But what a day it was on Sunday. Just absolute chaos throughout the early window, the late window. Special teams went bananas, blocked field goals all over the place. Crazy upsets, including the big one in Cleveland of the Browns scoring 13 unanswered points to beat the Green Bay Packers. What a day it was. And we're going to talk about some of the big moments, including special teams. Special teams, how important it is for the game of football. Let me bring in my good friend, Ben Allen. Ben, what's going on, my friend?
What's going on, Ari? Yeah, it was a fun, exciting, chaotic week 3 full of games. And I think the most special part of the weekend was the special teams play, from the kick returns, block punts, or block field goals, I should say. Like, it was just chaotic. And I think the NFL is getting exactly what they wanted with the change in this kickoff return rule. So can you talk a little bit about what stood out to you as far as what the special teams plays that did take place, and kind of just like the greater scheme and emphasis on special teams this year that we've seen from the league?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the kickoff returns, the dynamic kickoff and all of that here later on. But the big thing that we saw throughout the day on Sunday was the blocked field goals, which the Eagles had 2 of them, including the game-winning one, Jordan Davis running it back. The Browns had the one on Brandon McManus, which the Packers were kicking to take the lead. And, of course, in the end, the Browns kick a 55-yard field goal to win the game. The Jets had one with Will McDonald jumping over the line, blocking the field goal, running it back. That could have been the go-ahead winning touchdown, but we know that Tampa Bay came back. The Sunday night game, Graham Gano suffering an injury in pregame warmups. They're having their punter kick field goals. There was an extra point blocked in that game. Late in the Saints and Seahawks game, there was a blocked field goal. It was all over the place in the NFL. And of course, we've seen other things happening around special teams, which I'll get to here in a second. But, I just want to talk about just the importance of special teams. And I think fans don't truly realize how important it is. And I want to spotlight special teams coordinators here on the show today because, we know offense as a coordinator, defense as a coordinator. If you're a diehard fan, you probably know most of the offensive and defensive coordinators in this league. Special teams coordinators, you know your own team, but you don't know everyone else around the NFL. And it is one of the most important people in an NFL building. And the truth is, the special teams coordinator is the only coach on staff who works with all 53 players on a roster. That is starters, backups, rookies, veterans, linebackers, receivers, safeties, long snappers, kickers, punters, literally everybody on the organization. A special teams coordinator has his hands in it. And in many ways, special teams is where the game of football is won and lost. And like I said, we saw it all in week 3. There was the block kicks. We saw the massive returns with the dynamic kickoff. We saw this creative kickoff strategy with the Los Angeles Rams with these knuckleball line drive kicks. And of course, the game-winning clutch field goals that we saw as well. This is all a product of preparation, detail, and of course, coaching. And all of that starts with special teams coordinators around the NFL. And really what makes the job so difficult compared to an offense and a defensive coordinator is when you're coaching special teams, you don't have your guys. Like, you're working with whoever is available to you. And often that's players at the bottom of a roster, which is always being churned throughout the course of the year. It's third-string running backs, the 6th receiver, the backup linebacker, the undrafted rookie who is just trying to figure out life in the NFL. And as a special teams coordinator, it is your job to turn that group. And a bunch of guys who never have played together in their lives, trying to coordinate together into a unit that performs under pressure in front of, 70,000 fans in a game. And it's really just a handful of snaps every single game. And that's the crazy part about it. And here's something that I think casual fans might not truly realize when it comes to special teams coordinators. They actually have real power when it comes to the building and building a roster. When you're cutting down to 53 players, which we had a few weeks ago, the special teams coordinator literally plays a big role in deciding who's wide receiver 6, who's linebacker 5, who's DB number 6, because those guys it always comes down to who is the best special teamer on the team. And those are the guys who make the roster. And the GM, the assistant GM, they always talk to the special teams coordinator to figure that all out. So special teams very big around the NFL, and we saw it here in week 3. The margin of error is so tiny. Special teams, again, 15 to 20 snaps per game, but a missed field goal, a blocked punt, a blocked field goal, a 60-yard return, a fake, one mistake, and that entire game could be flipped over the way we saw here in week 3. And these plays, they don't happen in isolation. They're practiced over and over and over again. They're scripted over and over and over again. They're coached in such detail every single week, every single day. It's one of the most important factors that a coach has on the staff. And that's why also we've seen a bunch of head coaches in the NFL. They sometimes start as special teams guy. That's what John Harbaugh was in Baltimore. Bill Belichick actually started on the special team side. They cut their teeth over there. And that's also a way of growing in a leadership role because you're managing so many different personalities. You're handling chaos. You're working with the entire roster. It's all 53 players, like I said, and you're being judged on just a few plays a game. So I think there was no better time to talk about this and how important it is in the NFL than this week because of what we saw on Sunday. There was the entire game in Green Bay, like we mentioned. After the game, the Packers long snapper Matt Orzech said that they were fully aware that Shelby Harris, who blocked that field goal, has actually blocked the most field goals in NFL history since he came into the league in 2014. And yet there was one missed assignment, one breakdown, one mental lapse, and that swung the entire outcome of an entire game from the Packers being 3-0 and instead now being 2-1 in this game. It's so many little things that happen over here. One little missed assignment on a field goal unit can be the difference between 3 points and a game-changing disaster. And every single player has a specific role, a specific gap to protect, and timing is everything. And we saw that throughout the course of Sunday with all the moments that there were there. The Jordan Davis play, the blocked field goal there, running it back. These are all things that change the outcomes of games and really could change the outcome of where a season can go for a team around the NFL. So I did want to just show some love to these special teams coordinators around the NFL. There's many brilliant ones. Bubba Petrone in Cleveland, of course, they had the big big play in that game versus the Packers. Chris Horton in Baltimore, who's been with John Harbaugh for many, many years. Darren Rizzi in Denver, who was a guest on the show previously. Richard Hightower in Chicago. Chase Blackburn with the Rams. John Fossil in Tennessee. Ryan Ficken with the Chargers. So many great ones around the NFL. And there was no better time to discuss this than today. And I really think fans should appreciate that aspect of the game more, especially after seeing what we did here on Sunday.
Do you imagine that moving forward the rest of the season, we're going to see more weeks like this where there really is a lot of impactful plays from the special teams, particularly in like this return game, kicks wise? Like we saw Horton with the Seahawks go 95 yards. He also had a touchdown through the air as well, which is fantastic. Like, do you imagine that the NFL right now is just grinning ear to ear that they're getting exactly what they wanted with the second iteration of this hybrid kickoff? And that case, a punt, but still.
That was a punt, right? That was a punt. But the dynamic kickoff, it's interesting because this is a copycat league. And I didn't really speak much about the kickoff in that entire monologue that I just gave you here. But that has been a massive difference around the NFL this year as well, because we've seen north of 70% of kickoffs getting returned this year because the NFL made a small tweak of a touchback now becoming the 35-yard line. And there was that one thing that happened in the Rams-Eagles game, which I was watching in one of my multi-view screens on YouTube TV. The Rams kicker, Josh Carty, may have quietly introduced the NFL to the next evolution of how to work around this dynamic kickoff, because we're getting all these big returns. We're getting balls, teams starting at the 30, 35, 40, big returns and all of that. Josh Carty in this game, and I posted all the videos of all his kickoffs, all game long, he was sending these low spin knuckleball style kicks deep downfield, and they gave Philadelphia's returners hell in the entire game. Tink Bigsby, John Mechie, all those guys, these kicks, they were tough to track. They would bobble it. They wouldn't be able to catch it. It was hard for them to handle it. And I was looking at it, unpredictable bounces, like all of that was going on throughout the course of the game. And the Eagles starting field position on those kickoffs were 19, 9, 14, 10, and 21. I mean, that is unbelievable. So the Rams have always been the team that starts new trends around the NFL. And I wonder if they found the new trend of the way they were kicking off over here, where the ball just has to land in the landing zone. And they're kicking it in a way where it's not going out of bounds after a bounce. And these returners can't catch it normally. By the time that the kickoff team is able to get down there, there's nowhere to go as a returner. It was incredible to watch. I don't know if people realize that, but Chase Blackburn, the Rams special teams coordinator, clearly had this plan set up. And Josh Carty, who was a second-year kicker, who of course missed the game-winning field goal of the block, at least in the kickoff side of things, that was one of the more impressive things I've seen. Because like I've said, the returns so far this year with this new dynamic kickoff rule, they've been starting field position has been really, really good for offenses. And meanwhile, the Rams, through 3 weeks, I didn't realize the first 2 weeks, they've been doing this the entire year. They did it in the Titans game as well. They did it in the Texans game in week 1. They have had opposing offenses starting way farther back than other teams over here under this new kickoff rule. So I'm curious to see if more teams start doing that, these knuckleball line drive kicks, which makes it harder to catch. And if that's the case, of course, it can become more difficult. So we're seeing these special teams coordinators trying to find different ways to adapt, to change, to live in this new world. And for the NFL and for watchers, it's brought the kickoff back into the game. And like Darren Rizzi, the Broncos special teams coordinator, we doing on this show about a year ago, he said the kickoff has become a bathroom break, a ceremonial play. That's no longer the case. It's actually a play now, and it's far more exciting, which is really, really good for football.
Really, really good for football. What's not really good for football, and maybe a little bit dichotomy is good, but is teams being 0-3. A lot of these fan bases, they're already starting to feel a little bit weird. We know that since 2000, only less than 1% of teams that have started 0-3 have actually gone on to make the playoffs. So some are surprising, some are not so surprising. Can you talk about a couple of the teams here that really have stood out to you as teams that are either surprising or just kind of a little bit disappointing that they're sitting here at 0-3?
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of teams here in week 3 who came into it winless and have been able to get a win. We mentioned the Browns, the Bears won, the Panthers won. So those teams are no longer winless here. But there are 2 teams in the AFC South who, one, I guess you shouldn't be crazy surprised about. The other one you probably are surprised about. And I want to speak about both those teams to kind of put a spotlight on them. Number one, the team that was the worst team in football last year, the Tennessee Titans. They are now 0-3, and another terrible loss to the Colts, who are now 3-0 in the AFC South. By the way, shout out to Daniel Jones, who has been outstanding. That defense, Lou and Rumo, they've been great. But focusing here on the Titans, it kind of feels a little bit the time might be running out of here for head coach Brian Callahan, who, let me peel back the curtain here for a second. I know for a fact there were discussions within that organization after last season about maybe do we just hit the entire reset button here, because they fired GM Rand Carthon, but they kept the head coach. They discussed moving on from everybody, but they kept Brian Callahan. But now they're 0-3 to start the year. Overall, in his year plus, he is 3-17 as head coach, which is tied for 6th worst start as a new head coach through 20 games, and the second worst since the NFL merger in 1970. Like, it's an awful start of the year for Brian Callahan. In that game, I don't know how many people had the Titans game in their multi-view. If you're watching it as a casual fan or a diehard fan, I don't know how many you're watching the Tennessee Titans right now, but there was a point in that game which just looked awful as a head coach. It was late in the first half. It was about 4th and 1, 4th and 2 at the Colts 39-yard line. It was about 46 seconds left in that game. And Brian Callahan had no idea what he wanted to do. Did I want to kick a field goal? Do we want to go for it? Is it too far of a field goal? And eventually he decides to, the Colts, I should backtrack for a second. The Colts called a timeout because they wanted to preserve time in case they get the ball. So there is more time over here to play with for Brian Callahan. During that time, he still couldn't figure out what he wanted to do. Then he used his own timeout as well, again, to try to figure it out. And then all of a sudden, while all that's going on, he still couldn't figure it out. And there was a 5-yard delay of game penalty on the Titans. Then he decides, you know what, forget it. We're going to kick a field goal and it's a 62-yard field goal now. They missed the field goal. Colts have a short field. They get a field goal to end the half. It's a bit of a 6-point swing because of all of that. But as a head coach, those are little things that shouldn't be happening. As they go back into the locker room at halftime, the game was at Nissan Stadium in Tennessee. The fans are booing like crazy. It was impossible not to hear it. Brian Callahan heard it. He was asked about it after the game. He said, I can't think about my job security. But those are things right now where I think it's going to start perking up over here in Tennessee. A couple of weeks ago in that week 2 game, he didn't know. It seemed like he wasn't really sure about a rule with his player coming down inbounds. He thought it was out of bounds. Like, there are stuff over here where the Titans, since they're the worst team in football, the worst roster in football, we're not really paying much attention to them. But this is awful, what's going on right now in Tennessee. And there was one quote that I saw from Colts receiver Michael Pittman after the game where he literally said something which is not what you want to hear as the Titans head coach. He said, quote, we saw it during pregame intros. The Titans, looked a little sluggish. They were walking around. Nobody was really bouncing around. Right then and there, they were like, they don't want to play today. So the Colts believed going into this game during pregame warmups, the Titans looked unprepared. So that is just not a good look over here. They were down 20-6 at half. And keep in mind, this is a Tennessee organization that has fired a head coach or GM in 3 straight years, from Vrabel, John Robinson, Rand Carthon. Like, there's not been any stability there. So from that situation right now, I would keep a very close eye on the situation in Tennessee with Brian Callahan. On the other side of it over here in the AFC South, another winless team, which is more surprising, would be the Houston Texans. And they're 0-3, unlike some of the other winless teams. People thought this is a team that should win the AFC South, a team that had a very deep receiver group, a quarterback who should bounce back with a new offensive coordinator in Nick Caley. And like we know, this is a team that made the playoffs in back-to-back years, winning the division. And yet here they are, just winless through 3 weeks. And what makes it even more shocking is that the defense, which we all knew was really strong, they've been really good. Like, in 3 games so far this year, they've allowed 14 points in week 1, 20 points in week 2, and 17 points here in week 3 in the loss to the Jaguars on Sunday. And in today's NFL, in 2025, holding your opponents to under 20 points is pretty darn good. That's more than enough to win. And for Houston, that is not good enough over here. And they are the first team in over 20 years to start the year winless through three games, while allowing less than 55 points in those games. So the issue is the offense, and there's many issues here. And I'll look at a couple of things over here. First of all, in the game versus the Jaguars, they had 13 drives. 4 of those drives started at their own 42 or better, and only 1 of those possessions resulted in points. And I'm going to focus here in a second on Nick Haley, the offensive coordinator who was hired this offseason to replace Bobby Slowick. This is an offense that just has not looked creative at all, does not have any imagination at all. And the reason why Bobby Slowick was fired was because the head coach, the GM, they felt like the offense was going backwards. They felt like they needed to give CJ Stroud more authority of the offense. And they felt like hiring Nick Caley, who has been in New England previously and was with the Rams last year with Sean McVay, could potentially change that. And Caley was one of the hottest offensive coordinator candidates out there this offseason. He's somebody who people have told me he's a brilliant guy and somebody who could be a future head coach in the NFL. I'm not going to bash him over here and say he is the problem no matter what. The offensive line is just as much of a big issue over here as well. And I kind of wonder, the offensive line is a mess. Nick Haley's offense, it feels very vanilla right now, not much creativity, no spark. But I also wonder if he's thinking to himself, if they can't protect up front, that raises a question over here that if he could do any of the creative stuff that he wants to do, that he's able to do. And that's kind of the part of my question over here. Arante Ursere, their rookie left tackle, 2nd-round pick, he has started at left tackle in each of the last couple of weeks. He allowed 6 pressures on Sunday. He allowed 2 sacks on Sunday. The offensive line as a whole is a mess. There's penalties galore. There's these interceptions. There's the fumble by Nico Collins on Sunday. These things that are happening in the worst possible time, and it kind of feels like it's unraveling. And the only good thing over here that you could say is A, the defense at least is keeping them in these games, and then B, you look at the division where right now the Colts are 3-0, the Jaguars are 2-1, and of course you have these two winless teams here. You kind of hope that the Jaguars and Colts kind of come back to life over here, and you're able to catch them up over here as the year goes on, and as you have more divisional games. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. But the offensive line in Houston is a big problem. I'm not going to point everything on Kaylee. I'm not going to point everything on CJ Stroud. Maybe they just need some more time over here. But when the defense is holding them down over here on Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, and Derek Stingley, who got hurt in this game, and Kamari Lassiter and Jalen Petrie, and all these players are playing so well, it's disappointing for you to be 0-3. And there was a point in that game, which I don't know if I didn't post a video, but there was a point in the game where D'Amico Ryans, the head coach, kind of was, I don't want to say shouting, and Nick Haley was like, yo, we got to go more up tempo, go more up tempo. And that just, it's not a good sign after 3 weeks. So week 4, guess who plays each other? It's Titans winless versus Texans winless. One of these teams will have a win over here. And if it's not the Texans, there's going to be a lot of Houston going into week 5.
Come on, Ari, we could have a tie. What do you guys say one of the teams has to win? Maybe they can leave the game 0-2-1 and really screw up all our graphics trying to get that third in.
0-3-1, Ben.
Oh, sorry, 0-3-1. Yeah. That is how football and weeks work and everything. This is Sunday's got my brain scrambled. That's kind of where we are already. I mean, every single thing we think we know about the NFL, it just gets completely balled up, crumpled, and just like thrown into a trash can when you see scores like what's going on in the Cleveland Browns versus the Green Bay Packers. I mean, here at the 33rd team, we have a Survivor League. Half of the league picked the Packers to win. So half of them are already out. Thankfully, I did not. I just decided to pick against the Saints, which was a smart choice.
Shout out to you, because I told somebody to pick the Packers instead of the Seahawks, and they feel like an idiot. So, well, for you.
I'm sure that they really appreciate your insight.
No, they're very, very pissed off at me. And I was like, hey, listen, like Witherspoon is out and Julian Love is out, and someone else that's Julian Love is out, and like Spencer Rattler, like he's actually been looking good so far, and then I sound like an idiot. So,
well,
that's me.
It is what it is. On the fun side of things here, we do have some pretty exciting stuff to talk about. One, we got to talk about all these helmets over your shoulder here. This is pretty nice looking, right? Look at Ari got every team up there.
Could we talk about that for a second? Shout out to my good friends at Rydell, the amazing company who does helmets, who realized that on my shelf that some helmets, not all the helmets, are like, Ari, we'll hook you up. We'll give you all the helmets you're missing. And isn't it gorgeous? Like, it's fantastic. It's beautiful. I mean, every single team is back there. A couple of teams are in football form, the Falcons, the Jaguars. The Buccaneers are the only team in a full helmet, so shout out to them. But it's fantastic. It looks great over here with the background. There used to be a time about a year ago where the shelf was empty, if you remember, Ben, or almost empty. And now it's gorgeous. It's amazing. So shout out to Rydell. That is awesome. And on the other fun thing, 10 outs over here, Ben, we have our special spotlight guest coming out of here tomorrow. And we're going back to the players, and we're going to be joined by a player from the Arizona Cardinals who are coming off a tough loss on Sunday to the 49ers, the game they should have won, could have won, whatever, different story. But Baron Browning, the Cardinals linebacker pass rusher, acquired last year in a trade, has been all over the field so far this year. A pressure monster, has had an interception in that week 2 game versus the Panthers, got a nice 2-year, $15 million deal this offseason to return to Arizona. Just a player who's very, very important to that defense, along with the Josh Sweats and the Calais Campbells and the Will Johnson and the Max Meltons and the Buda Bakers, a defense that has a lot of really good players and a defensive staff that is very, very young. Baron Browning is a very, very important player, and we spoke to him about his entire career path, his journey, the trade to Arizona, the players around him, this defensive staff, and much more. A really, really fun conversation with a player who many people should get to know more about, because he's a pretty vital player there in Arizona.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things that we talked about him was just like the versatility as we get into it. Like, he went from middle linebacker to edge, to then back to middle linebacker, back to edge. Like, it was a back and forth thing at Ohio State. It's been a back and forth thing pretty much immediately from when he was with the Denver Broncos, now over with the Arizona Cardinals. He's talked about how great it's been to have a full offseason, getting used to Nick Rawls' defense. It's a really fun one to listen to. He's a guy you guys should get to know. He's an impact player that I think is, he's he wasn't necessarily on the Arizona Cardinals, you'd be like penciling as like, oh, this guy could really, really be doing this. But he is doing it. And he's doing it for a team that's 2-1. And like you said, very well could have been 3-0 today. So it is what it is. That's how football works. And yeah, we're very excited to have him share his story.
The defense has not been the issue in Arizona, especially in that game versus the 49ers. Got the safety to take the lead. The offense just has to score more points. But if they do, and once they do, and I believe they will with Kyler and Marvin and Trey McBride, they need another receiver on this team. It's a whole different conversation. I picked Jonathan Gannon to be the coach of the year. I picked him because I believe in this team. They've been my team the last couple of years. They're almost there. They should have won on Sunday. It is what it is, but Baron Browning is a very, very big part of it. And he will be joining the show here tomorrow on NFL Spotlight. Make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube. Gosh, this background is beautiful, man. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, it's fantastic. It really is. But that will be coming up over here tomorrow on the show. Again, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. If you listen to us on X, that's where the full episode is also dropped every single Tuesday for our Spotlight guest. And of course, if you are a podcast guy, Apple and Spotify. And of course, if there's somebody else around the NFL who you think should be a Spotlight guest here in the future, put a spotlight on a player, a coach, an executive, leave a comment, send me a DM. We will take a look at it, and we will be back here tomorrow morning talking with our Spotlight guest of the week in Baron Browning. We'll see you then.